So a few weeks ago, I was wanting to get another Walkman model, and I didn't know which one I wanted. I just wanted one from the 80s. So I hopped on walkman.land. I'm scrolling through all the catalogs and looking at all the images of them, and that's a pretty good resource if you guys haven't actually checked that out. I definitely recommend it. And through there, I came across this commercial featuring this super cool, super stoic, just a very smart monkey. You can tell by the way he's standing. And I wanted to be just like him, so I had to figure out what model that monkey's holding in that commercial. And turns out it is a Walkman WM-501, and I got my hands on one. Now, the story for this 501 and how I got my hands on a working one, it is not as easy as you'd think. So I came across this listing for a 501 that it claimed to be serviced, and they even had a video of them using it. So I had thought, well, this has got to be the one. So I ended up buying it, and we wait on the shipping and everything. It eventually shows up, and what do? I throw in a tape, throw in a battery, hit play, and I am just met with the worst sound possible. A clicking sound, like a rhythmic clicking, click, 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 click. That is the sound of a broken gear, honestly. It was not good. It was not looking good. So I eventually took the tape out, found out it chewed up the tape, first of all, which that's also great. And from there, I thought, well, might as well just go ahead and get a refund. That obviously was a scam with them claiming it to be serviced, and it wasn't. So before I do that, I open it up and I look inside the machine, and yeah, the belt in there, it borderlined rubber band. It was not the right belt at all. The auto reverse solenoid wire, the black ground wire, was completely shaved off by a screw or something like that. It wasn't looking good. And the drive gear underneath the tape well, that thing was missing about 7 or 8 teeth, and yeah, it wasn't looking good. So what do? I get a parts unit. Now you might be wondering, why did I get a parts unit? Why not just refund it? Well, the only one on the internet I could find that claimed to be working was $1,000. Now, I'm not spending $1,000 on a Walkman model. That's just ridiculous. So I ended up getting a parts unit. Now, I got this parts unit off of Bai, which is a Japan proxy website. I believe it works through Mercari and Yahoo Auction Japans and stuff like that. There's a bunch of different services they offer, but the main one that I was using was Yahoo Auction Japan, and I ended up coming across a parts unit. It was reasonably priced. It was around $19 or so, but of course, this is an auction, so I ended up in a bidding war. I ended up getting it. It was less than $100, which that is way cheaper than anything I could get on eBay, that's for sure. But the main thing about it was the gears. They were nearly white. They had a little bit of yellow from age, but nothing like the gears that were in the unit that I ended up receiving. Oh man, those gears were horrible. So I ended up getting the parts unit. It shows up, and I take it apart. I swap out those gears for the bad ones for the good ones, and while I was at it, I desoldered that auto reverse solenoid and swapped that thing out, soldered it back in, and while I was at it, swapped the belts, and yeah, it works perfectly after that. And considering the only one that claims to be working on eBay is $1,000, I think I saved a pretty decent chunk of change being able to repair it myself. So I'd like to walk you through my process of repairing this device and show off the features, and we can even do a comparison between other models and the sound quality, and we'll see where this machine excels and where it doesn't, because overall I'm very happy with it. It is a nice device, so let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, so to get into this repair process, I like to start with a microfiber cloth. This is just a basic orange one, nothing fancy or anything. It is a good practice to use it though, because it will prevent you from getting scratches on the surface you're working on. Now for tools, you're going to possibly need a pair of tweezers. Now these aren't necessary, but for getting quarter turns out of the belts, they help out a lot. So I would definitely recommend a pair of tweezers. And a screwdriver that can unscrew the screws on the player. This is just a tiny little Phillips head that I got from a kit. And you'll need the belt that you're going to replace. And you're also going to need the player, of course. So let's go ahead and get started. On the back there are 5 screws, and 2 of them are smaller than the other 3. Here's 2 on the back cover, 1 on the side. These are all the same length. And then these 2 on the bottom are shorter, so just make sure you keep those separated. Now I'm going to go ahead and start unscrewing them. And do keep in mind, you want to take your time in this step so the screwdriver doesn't accidentally slip and scratch up the back of your Walkman, especially if it's one you care about. I would definitely just recommend taking your time. Alright, so getting this one. And I'm just creating a little pile of them off to the side. Alright, so getting this one. I am not right-handed, so I'm just being careful. Alright, now the last one. There we go. So, to get this back cover off, I like to open up the battery port and just use the silver edge here to pull up. You just want to pull up from this side and it's going to kind of rotate off. There you go. And then it'll just open like that. And do keep in mind, a couple of the switches will fall out. These 2 black switches right here will probably fall out, and the DBB right here will definitely fall out. I've got them on this microfiber here, so it should be alright. Now, here's the device. As you can see, the belt path goes around there. Now, what you want to do is just take the old belt off and switch it out with the new belt. Not sure if these will be visible, but the one on the right is the correct belt. The one on the left is the wrong belt. The wrong belt is too big and it is too thick, so it is not going to work. Just replace it with this belt, which I purchased this belt on fixyouraudio.com. That's the only place I recommend to get your pinch rollers and your belts from. They've got just about every single one. You could search up your model and figure it out. So I like to get the belt around the motor first, right there. And then I just bring it around here. Now this is going to be a bit hard to show. You don't want to stretch the band out at all, so just be careful. This is a little bit of where the tweezers come in. Alright, so now that you've got the belt on, all you've got to do is make sure it is on the right side of this peg right here. Bring it around. Oops. Okay, yeah, bring it around. And I just get the end onto this bearing, and then I turn the bearing, and it brings it right in place. Now with the tweezers, I can get it onto this other bearing here. And then all you need is one side, then you can turn it, and it just goes right in place like that. Give it a few turns just to get everything lined up. Alright, so this technically is done, but what I like to do is I like to make sure there's no quarter turns in the belt to improve the wow and flutter. So basically you just want to make sure you follow one edge of the belt and it should be straight all the way around. And if there's quarter turns, I'll show you how to go ahead and get those worked out. But let me get close and make sure that this thing doesn't have any quarter turns. Alright, so I've noticed a quarter turn right here. What I'll do is I will just pinch the belt just a little bit, turn it, turn it the way it needs to go, keep it at that orientation as I bring it around the bearing. This might require both hands, but once you do that, give it a little spin. That quarter turn should be worked out. Alright, it looks like the quarter turns are all worked out. Luckily, it was just that one. Sometimes every single one has a quarter turn, so just make sure you check it. And if you're having problems with wow and flutter, that could possibly be the issue. Not all the time though. That's usually one of the last things that happens. Alright, so let me give you a rundown of what these cables are and where they go. These black and red wires right here go straight to that solenoid for the auto reverse, which is directly underneath the circuit board in this area. To get this circuit board off, there is a screw hidden behind this ribbon cable. You want to make sure you get all of that tape off, and then you can kind of bend it up into position. Unscrew that screw, and then there's a screw right here underneath those cables. Then the circuit board just kind of lifts up. Solenoid is directly underneath there that I had to replace, and it solders directly onto this, underneath this tape right here. Now these black and red wires go straight to the motor, which is underneath this housing. As you can see, there it is. And to unscrew the motor, if you ever needed to, it is just those screws right there, and you don't need to remove this housing. You can just remove these screws and the motor will come out, as long as the circuit board's out. Alright, so now that it doesn't have a cover, let's see how the mechanism looks. So I'm just going to put a battery in here, just a typical gum stick battery. And then I'm going to hit play and we'll see it fire up. There it goes. So I'll show you what these parts here, these are for the auto reverse. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip that up and it unblocks a little notch here on the gear and it's going to allow it to spin. So let's see that. And now it's playing the other side. And there we go, it just automatically stopped. There we go. That's pretty much how the system works. That solenoid just either pushes or pulls on that thing, which engages the other side, and then of course it's going to stop. There we go. So yeah, that's pretty much what that solenoid does. Now let me show you it moving. So if I push this button, you can see it just kind of pushes that thing up and it gets it to switch directions. And without that solenoid, that cannot be activated without the back cover off. Just keep that in mind. So that part of the player is pretty important. So now that we've got all this done, let's go ahead and get this back cover back on the device. So what I do is I hold it upright to where all of the I/O is facing up, and I just get these switch covers put back into place. Alright, so these switch covers, as you can see, they face down. They have a little notch in them. It's kind of hard to see, but you'll see it when you take them off. The two little tabs should be facing down. Then the DBB switch has a little notch on the end. That just goes right into that point. Whoops. Goes right there, and then it turns up. Now you want to make sure the little cutout is over the switch. So you can tell it's working when you move it and you hear the clicking. Alright, so now that that's done, let's get the back cover back on. You can see here it's got a cutout for all of the buttons and stuff. You just want to line that up. I'm going to do it this way so you can see. You just want to line those up, keep it at an angle, and then start to bring it down. Then once you're at this stage, you want to put a little pressure on it this way and this way. Not too much, but just a little bit. And it goes straight down. That easy. So now let's just get those screws back on. Alright, and there's the last one. I did forget to mention this, and I'm remembering it now. Make sure if you needed to remove those cables for the solenoid or the motor, make sure you replace the tape on them, and also make sure that they are not overlapping the areas for these screws on the back cover. That is how the solenoid got broken in the first place. Someone had screwed in the back cover with the wire directly over, and the screw went right through the wire. So just make sure that tape is back on and they're in the correct place. That has a reason to be there. And there you go. That is the player put back together. Now, while I'm at it, I would like to show you the area where the gears go. So you're just going to remove 4 screws, these 2 right here, this one, and this one. And once you do that, there's a little washer right here. You want to get that washer off. And while you're doing that, put your finger over it. It's going to take 2 hands. And once that washer's off, your finger's going to block it. That washer's going to want to fly away, and once it does, you will never see it ever again. And that washer's necessary, so make sure you keep that thing. Then once that's done, you just are going to pull up on that well, and you'll see all the gears in there. Alright, so there's the player put back together, and as you can see, it works just fine. Not a problem at all. So let's go ahead and get into the features and get into some of the tests. Okay, so now that that's done, let me walk you through some of the features that this thing has, because it actually has a lot of features for the time that this thing came out. So this thing was released in 1987, and it was only in production for 2 years, so they stopped making it in 1989. Puts this unit at the youngest it could be, 35, which, yeah, that's way older than me. So this player was 25,000 yen at the time of release, and that's $200 USD at the time. So if you run that through an inflation calculator, you're looking at about $550, which, yeah, that puts this player at a pretty nice premium, and it shows. It is all metal body, it is extremely solid, and it's the heaviest Walkman that I own in the same class. So just starting to look at some of the stuff here, we have nice solid just analog buttons right here. We've got a rewind, fast forward, stop, eject, and play. It even has a lock to where it won't engage when you don't want it to. Then over on this side here, we have, starting from the left, a battery indicator lamp. This battery lamp also shows the direction that the tape is playing in, so it'll go reverse or forward, and those dim over time as you use the battery up. And then we have a direction switch. Now, this switch engages the auto reverse system. It'll basically activate that solenoid that I ended up repairing, and it'll play the other side of the tape. Then over here we have an A to B repeat, or A to B stop. So basically it'll play side A, side B, and then just stop. Or if you switch it, it'll go A, B, A, B, A, B, and just go over and over and over again. Then we have a tape selector, which you can switch it between normal or metal and chrome, which is nice because some Type 2 tapes do prefer a Type 1 equalization. Not all of them do, but some of them do. Then we have Dolby noise reduction, which I believe it's Type B. I can't say for certain, because it actually doesn't say on the device. It just says Dolby noise reduction. So I'm going to guess it's Type B though. And then we have DBB, which is dynamic bass boost. Now, I'm under the impression that just the Japanese units were the ones that had dynamic bass boost, and everything outside of that was mega bass. Now, I'm not 100% certain, but that's under the impression that I have gotten. So if we take a look at it, it has a maximum, a minimum, and a normal setting. I usually just leave it at the minimum setting because maximum is a bit too much bass, but if you like bass, you'll probably leave it on maximum. And then we have just a headphones jack. Most modern phones, sadly, they can't even say that they have that. Then over on this side, we have a DC in 1.5 volt, and there is also the battery icon. Now, that DC in is part of a special feature for this player that I will eventually be showing you later on in this video. It's got some extra parts and stuff that go along with it, and it's for a AA battery adapter. It's pretty nice. So let's just go ahead and get into some sound tests. This will be a quick one just so we can get the comparison between this model and a couple other models and the digital equivalent to it as well. So let's jump into that. Alright, so before I wrap this one up, this player also came with a hard plastic case, and it's pretty good and gets the job done. It's got a belt loop on the back of it, and right here on the bottom, it's got a AA battery adapter. And it also came with a power adapter, which is the same size as a gum stick, and it's got the hole on the side for the 1.5 volt in. and all you've got to do is just put that into the player where the gum stick is. Just line up the 2 holes and you'll be good. And then you just take the player, slide it right in the case, and then there you go. It can be powered off a AA, and you still have access to all the buttons. So that's pretty much it for the 501 and what it's got to offer. It's a really solid player. It sounds great. It excels with jazz and vaporwave, that type of stuff. And you can even get away with other things like hip hop and even rock, I've found. But this player, for its age, it's definitely going to be hard to find one in functional condition. Most of them are for parts units and will require some sort of repair to function, which unfortunately that means the prices are going to be high for functioning ones. But if you have your chance to get your hands on one of these Walkman and you think you can repair it and you know how, I would definitely recommend it, because I'm going to imagine these things will be more expensive in the future, just seeing how the prices are going. So yeah, thank you for watching the video. This is my first one, but I'm going to keep making more of them. I've got a couple other Walkman units and a couple of these tape decks back here that I would really like to review. So if you'd like to see those, just stick around and you'll eventually see them. So yeah, thank you for watching.